Tonight, get ready to unlock a powerful secret guarded by Buddhist monks for centuries. It can instantly calm your restless mind and lead you into unprecedented deep rest. These 10 Zen stories I'm about to share have already helped millions break free from the chains of chaotic thoughts and embrace the most peaceful sleep of their lives in tranquility. Each story holds an invisible key. It can activate your brain's innate healing power, making stress and worries fade away. Like warm water melting ice. This is completely different from the ordinary sleep meditations you've heard of. Even if you've never tried meditation before, even if your brain is like a never-ending roller coaster, even if you've tried all methods to no avail, these stories will still work. Buddha once said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." Over the next 3 hours, you'll fully understand the profound meaning of this sentence and, more importantly, master the practical ways to embed it into your life. As we step into the wonderful stories like the empty boat, ferrying people, and the wise man breaking attachments, you'll experience incredible changes. Your tense shoulders and neck will slowly relax. Your messy thoughts will recede like the tide, and an unprecedented sense of relaxation will spread from the soles of your feet to the top of your head. Now, adjust your pillow and let your body sink into the most comfortable position. Take a deep breath with me and exhale. You've already embarked on this journey of peace that spans thousands of years. The first story starts with a temple in the middle of a storm. Our first story takes place by a tranquil river. Here you'll understand the nature of reaction. This is the story of the empty boat. Once upon a time, there was a man who loved rowing on the calm river. He enjoyed the freedom of drifting with the current and indulged in the quiet of nature and the peace of solitude. Every evening, when the setting sun gilded the world with a layer of golden light, he would pick up his oars and start a peaceful voyage. On such a night, as he gently rowed, lost in the tranquility, he suddenly noticed another boat heading straight for him. At first, he politely shouted, "Watch out!" But the boat didn't change course at all, still coming right at him. The man's anger gradually flared up, and he couldn't help shouting, "Move aside, you're going to hit me." Looking at the approaching boat, anxiety surged in his heart, and the originally peaceful night was instantly filled with frustration. Finally, the two boats collided. He was about to vent his anger on the careless boatman, but when he looked closely, he found that the boat was empty. There was no one in it. It was just being carried along by the current, drifting aimlessly. At that moment, the man's anger vanished in an instant. Sitting in his boat, he suddenly felt silly for shouting at an empty boat. The situation hadn't changed. The boats still collided. But what had changed was his understanding. There was no intention, no carelessness, no disrespect behind the collision. So there was no reason to be angry. Buddha once said, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." The story of the empty boat perfectly illustrates this profound truth. Our anger, frustration, and resentment often don't come from the events themselves, but from the stories we weave about the intentions behind those events. Why do we react this way? In Zen Buddhism, it's believed that such reactivity stems from our attachment to the self. We have a deep-rooted obsession with an independent self that needs to be defended and confirmed. When someone cuts in line in traffic, the self feels it as a personal insult. How dare they disrespect me? The self constructs a narrative centered on us, where others are either allies or opponents. Think about how many empty boat moments you've had in a day. You impose non-existent malice on those things. The driver who cut in line might be rushing to the hospital. The colleague who didn't respond to your greeting might be caught up in a family crisis. The friend who didn't reply to your message might be struggling with depression. But our self, in an instant, always fills these empty boats with assumptions of malice, carelessness, and disrespect. In meditation, we develop awareness of this pattern through mindfulness. By observing our thoughts without rushing to identify with them, we can find that we are adding things to the empty boat. We can notice the physical signals when anger arises: chest tightness, shortness of breath, narrowing of vision. Take these as the bells of mindfulness, reminding ourselves to stop and take a good look. Dogen, a 13th century Zen master, said, "To study the Dharma is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self." When we let go of the obsession that the self constantly needs to assert and defend, we can see the truth of the empty boat is just an event happening in the vast river of existence, with no meaning aimed at anyone and no intentional contempt. Buddha taught, holding on to anger is like holding a red, hot coal, wanting to throw it at someone else, but it's yourself who gets burned. Every time we respond with anger, it's us who bear the pain first. Recognizing the empty boat in daily interactions can free us from this self-inflicted pain. Tonight, look back on the day and think about those moments when you felt slighted or offended. Could you recognize that empty boat at that time? Can you see how your thoughts filled it with assumptions and judgments? In this awareness, can you feel the freedom that comes from letting go? As Buddha said, peace comes from within. There's no need to seek it outside. When we stop filling the empty boat with stories woven by the self, the peace we pursue is already around us. Now, let's set foot on a winding mountain path. There, a monk is trapped between fierce tigers and a desperate situation, yet encounters an unexpected twist. Once upon a time, in a quiet mountain temple deep in the forest, lived a wise and peaceful monk. Every day, he would wander through the surrounding woods, meditating on the beauty of nature and the teachings of the Buddha. He found great tranquility in the forest solitude, where he could deeply connect with the present moment and the world around him. One day, while walking along a narrow mountain trail, the monk suddenly heard a terrifying sound, a tiger's roar echoing through the trees. He froze, his heart pounding. When he turned, he saw a huge, ferocious tiger crashing through the dense forest undergrowth toward him. Its eyes locked onto his, its powerful body moving at speed. The monk's first reaction was to flee, and flee he did. He sprinted down the path, the tiger gaining on him, his robes fluttering behind. In a desperate bid to escape, he spotted a vine hanging over a cliff edge. Without hesitation, he grabbed it and began to climb down, hoping to find safety below Dot as he descended. Clinging tightly to the vine, he looked down and his heart sank. Below him, another tiger paced at the cliff's base, waiting for him to fall. He was trapped. Up was impossible. Down was deadly. The monk hung there on the vine, with a tiger above and a tiger below. His situation seemed utterly hopeless, but as he dangled between the two tigers, something caught his eye. Growing on the cliffside, within arm's reach, was a small wild strawberry plant with one ripe red berry. Dot in that moment, the monk thought of nothing. Not the tigers, not his fear, not his predicament. Instead, he reached out one hand, carefully, plucked the strawberry, and put it in his mouth. He took a bite and savored its sweetness. It was exquisite. For that brief instant, there was only the taste of the strawberry, sweet, fresh, perfect. Despite the surrounding danger, in that moment, the monk found peace. He had accepted that he couldn't change his circumstances, yet he could still fully experience the present. The monk smiled, knowing that even in the most perilous situation, this fleeting sweetness was a reminder of life's beauty. The Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. This teaching is the heart of the monk and tiger story, revealing a profound truth about our human condition. We spend our lives suspended between two tigers, the regrets and wounds of the past and the fears and anxieties of the future. Why? Do we struggle so much to live in the present? Zen explains that our minds evolved primarily as survival mechanisms, constantly scanning for threats and planning defenses. But when this evolutionary advantage pulls us away from the only moment we truly have, it becomes a mental burden. Our minds trick us into believing happiness lies in fixing the past or securing the future, when in reality, peace is only found in the now. Look deeply at your own experience. How much of your mental suffering comes from replaying past events? You can't change? The harsh words you wish you hadn't said, the opportunities you missed, the relationships that ended painfully, these are the tiger above. How much anxiety comes from anticipating future scenarios that may never happen? Next week's work presentation, the results of a medical test, financial worries, these are the tiger below. Zen, Master Thich Nhat Hanh taught. If you are mindful, you will see it. That strawberry in the story is the simple, accessible joy that exists even in difficulty. It doesn't deny the challenges we face. It simply offers a different relationship to them. That strawberry might be the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of a child's laughter, the taste of a simple meal, the comfort of your bed, or even the miracle of your own breath. These small joys are always present, even in our hardest moments, but we miss them when we're consumed by the tigers of past and future. Zen practice teaches us to cultivate what the Japanese call ichigo, ichi, the art of treasuring each unique moment as a once-in-a-lifetime gift. When we truly understand the preciousness of this moment, we naturally want to live in it fully, whatever our circumstances. The Buddha said, "The secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate troubles, but to live wisely and earnestly in the present." This wisdom invites us to notice where our attention habitually rests. Do you often find yourself rehashing past conversations or rehearsing future scenes? Can you gently guide your awareness back to the strawberry of the present moment? Simple sensory experiences available right now? Tonight, when thoughts of tomorrow's responsibilities or yesterday's regrets arise, remember the monk and his strawberry. What small joys might you savor right now, even amid uncertainty? Perhaps the rhythm of your breath, the weight of your blanket, or the quiet of this moment. The Buddha taught, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path." By savoring the strawberries along the way, we discover that peace isn't waiting for us. When the tigers disappear, it's already here, before them. The next story reveals a profound truth about the nature of suffering through a simple yet powerful metaphor. It's the story of the two arrows. On that day, the Buddha and his disciples sat in a peaceful forest clearing. A gentle breeze rustled. The leaves and the songs of birds filled the air. The Buddha often explained the nature of suffering and the path to enlightenment to his disciples here. At this moment, a puzzled disciple stepped forward, bowed before the Buddha, and asked, "Master, I don't understand why we have to endure so much suffering in life. No matter where we go, pain seems to follow. Why is that? How can we find peace amidst so much suffering?" The Buddha looked at the disciple with compassion and understanding. He saw the confusion and frustration in the disciple's eyes and knew this was a question in the hearts of many followers. He spoke gently. "Let me explain. Imagine a person is shot by an arrow. This arrow causes pain, and that pain is inevitable. This is the first arrow." The disciple nodded, understanding that the first arrow symbolized the unavoidable hardships in life, the physical pain from illness, injury, or loss. The Buddha continued, "Imagine that after being shot by the first arrow, the person is shot by a second arrow. The second arrow does not come from the outside. It is created by the mind. It is the anger, fear, frustration, or sadness that follows the pain. This is the second arrow. The Buddha paused to let his words sink in, and added, "The first arrow is unavoidable, but the second arrow is a choice." The first arrow represents the natural pain we all experience in life, the challenges and difficulties we cannot escape. But the second arrow, the suffering caused by our reaction to pain, is something we can choose to avoid. The disciple listened attentively as the Buddha explained. When we experience physical or emotional pain, in the face of the first arrow, we often add a second layer of suffering through our mental reactions, making the situation worse. We become angry, resentful, or anxious, and these emotions deepen the wound. Instead of accepting the pain, we resist it, and in doing so, the pain is amplified. The Buddha went on, "When we are struck by the first arrow, we must recognize that it is part of life, but at the same time, we must also recognize the second arrow, the one we create ourselves. Through mindfulness and understanding, we can choose not to let the second arrow pierce us." The disciple asked, "Master, how can we avoid the second arrow? How can we prevent our thoughts from increasing our pain?" The Buddha smiled. "Through practicing mindfulness, we can observe our thoughts and emotions without clinging to them. When we feel pain, we can acknowledge its existence without judgment, accept that pain is part of life, but not get entangled in it, nor create more pain through resistance or negative thoughts. In this way, we can stop the second arrow before it hits us." The Buddha taught, "Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional." This simple yet profound statement captures the essence of the two arrows parable. We cannot avoid all pain in life. The first arrow will always hit us, but we have great power to control the amount of suffering we endure because of that pain. Why do we easily shoot the second arrow at ourselves? Zen points out that it stems from several aspects of our condition. Thinking God first is the deep-rooted habit of aversion. The mind automatically avoids unpleasant experiences. When pain comes, we instinctively resist it, and the resulting mental tension exacerbates the initial discomfort. Second is our tendency to identify with pain, to merge ourselves with the experience, thinking, "I am in pain," rather than "I am experiencing pain." This subtle difference has a profound impact. When we fully identify with pain, it has everything and defines our entire reality. When we keep a little distance from it and observe it with space, it becomes just one aspect of a larger experience. Third is our habit of proliferation. The brain loves to generate endless thoughts about our experiences. A simple headache can trigger a series of worries. What if it's serious? What if it gets worse? Why does this always happen to me? I won't be able to concentrate on work tomorrow. Each thought is another second arrow, piercing us again and again. These mental habits operate mostly unconsciously, which is why the Buddha emphasized that mindfulness is the remedy. Through mindfulness practice, we can detect these patterns when they arise and learn to distinguish between the inevitable first arrow of pain and the optional second arrow generated by our psychological reactions. The Buddha said, "What you think you will become, you will attract. What you imagine, you will create." This teaching reveals the creativity of thought. Every time we respond to pain with aversion, identification, and proliferation, we are creating more pain. Every time we face pain with mindful awareness and acceptance, we are creating opportunities for healing and growth. Think about personal disappointments, perhaps rejection, failure, or loss. The first arrow is the actual event and the natural emotional response it elicits. The second arrow may include thoughts like, "This always happens to me," generalization, "I will never succeed," catastrophizing, "I should have done better," self-criticism, or "This is unfair," resistance to reality. These thoughts will bring additional pain beyond the initial disappointment. Zen Master Charlotte Yoko Beck said, "Pain is not something to be avoided, but an experience without resistance. This is the core of skillfully dealing with the first arrow. We do not deny pain, nor pretend it does not exist, but pay attention to the experience itself with curiosity and compassion, without adding the second arrow of judgment, resistance, or storytelling. The Buddha taught, if you are facing the right direction, all you need to do is keep walking. The right direction is to face pain, not escape it. By facing difficult experiences with mindfulness, we can skillfully live with pain without letting the second arrow intensify it. Tonight, when you notice the sensations in your body or the emotions arising in your heart, can you distinguish between the first arrow and the second arrow? Can you face the inevitable pain in life, physical discomfort, emotional vulnerability, or mental restlessness with kind awareness rather than resistance? As the Buddha said, the way is not in the sky, but in the heart. The path to freedom from suffering is not to escape the human experience, but to face it with wisdom and compassion. Let's explore a story that teaches us about the universality of loss and how understanding it can bring peace. This is the parable of the mustard seed. Long ago, there lived a young woman named Kissa Gautami. She was kind, compassionate, and deeply devoted to her family. But her life took a tragic turn when her only child, her beloved son, fell ill and died. Grief-stricken, Kissa couldn't accept her son's death. Clutching his lifeless body to her chest, she wandered from house to house, desperate to find someone who could bring him back to life. At every door, she pleaded, "Please help me. My son is dead. Can anyone heal him?" But everyone she approached turned her away, saying there was nothing they could do. With each step, her sorrow deepened. With each refusal, her heart ached more. One day, Kissa's path led her to a wise elder who took pity on her and said, "Go to the Buddha. Perhaps he can help you." A flicker of hope ignited in Kissa's heart. She hurried to meet the Buddha, renowned for his compassion and wisdom. She found him sitting calmly under a Bodhi tree, surrounded by disciples. Falling to her knees, she laid her son's body before him and begged, "Master, please bring my child back to life. I cannot bear this pain." The Buddha looked at her with great compassion and understanding. He saw the depth of her suffering, but he also knew she needed to learn a profound truth about life and death. He paused, then spoke softly. "I can help. You, Kissa. But first, you must bring me something. Go into the village and fetch me a single mustard seed." Kissa's heart filled with hope. "Yes, Master, I will bring you a mustard seed," she said, her voice trembling with relief. But before she left, the Buddha added, "The mustard seed must come from a household that has never known death. If you can find such a home and bring me the seed, I will revive your child." Eagerly, Kissa nodded and set off on her mission. She went to the first house in the village, knocked on the door, and a kind woman answered. Kissa explained her request. "May I have a mustard seed from your home? But it must come from a household where no one has ever died." The woman looked at Kissa with sorrow in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, "but my husband died last year." Kissa thanked her and went to the next house. Again she made her request, but this time the reply was, "I'm sorry, but my mother passed away many years ago." House after house, Kissa Gautami knocked, hoping to find a home untouched by death. But in every home, she heard stories of loss: a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, a child. As time passed, Kissa began to realize death was not unique to her. It was a universal experience, touching every family. Finally, as the sun began to set, Kissa returned empty-handed, but with a new understanding. She knelt before the Buddha, her heart no longer filled with desperate hope, but with acceptance. "Master," she said, "I cannot find a single household that has never known death. Every family has suffered loss. Now I understand. Death is part of life, and no one can escape it. The Buddha nodded gently. Kissa, you have learned an important truth. Death is inevitable. All who cling to worldly things will suffer. But by accepting life's impermanence, you can find peace. Your sorrow is not unique, it is shared by all living beings. It is the nature of existence. Hearing these words, Kissa Gotami realized that though her pain was intense, she did not bear it alone. She had been blinded by grief, but now she saw. Loss touches everyone. This new understanding allowed her to lay down her son's body, bury him with dignity, and finally find peace amid life's inevitable pain. The Buddha taught, all things that have a beginning must have an end. Accept this, and all will be well. This profound teaching is the heart of Kissa Gotami's journey. Her story illuminates one of existence's most challenging yet liberating truths. Nothing is permanent. Our attempts to deny this reality only multiply our suffering. Why do we resist the truth of impermanence so fiercely? Zen points to our deep-rooted longing for eternity. We want pleasant moments to stay pleasant, beauty to remain beautiful, and above all, we want our loved ones to stay with us forever. This craving for permanence in an impermanent world creates a fundamental tension that manifests as suffering. Like Kissa, we often respond to loss with denial. We refuse to accept what has happened, expending enormous energy trying to reverse the irreversible. Denial is a natural part of grief, but when we get stuck in it, we block our healing. The Buddha did not immediately lecture Kissa on impermanence. Instead, he gave her an experience that let her discover the truth for herself, a far more powerful teaching. The Buddha said, the root of suffering is attachment. In Kissa's case, her love for her son was not the problem. It was her desperate attachment that could not accept his death. Her journey to find a mustard seed from a deathless home showed her the futility of clinging to permanence. Every family, no matter how wealthy, happy, or blessed, had known death. This universality of loss connects us all. It is what Buddhists call being in the same boat. When we truly understand that loss touches everyone, our own grief, though still painful, feels less isolating. We recognize our experience as part of the great current of human existence, not a unique tragedy that separates us from others. The 14th century Zen master Basui wrote, "To see the truth, abandon desire. If you do not abandon desire, you will not see the truth." Kissa's desire to have her son back blinded her to the truth of impermanence. Only when she let go of this impossible wish could she begin to accept reality and find peace. Interestingly, the Buddha did not comfort Kissa with promises of an afterlife or reunion in another realm. Instead, he guided her to accept nature's laws, life and death, union and separation. This acceptance is not resignation or defeat. It is alignment with reality, the only place where healing can begin. The Buddha taught, the problem is you think you have time. This sharp reminder of life's brevity invites us to cherish each moment and each relationship, knowing nothing is guaranteed. This awareness does not make us morbid or depressed. It fills our lives with gratitude and presence. In your own experiences of loss, whether of a person, a relationship, a career, or a life stage, can you feel the lesson of the mustard seed? Can you see how resisting the natural flow of impermanence amplifies your pain? The Buddha said, when you realize how perfect everything is, you will tilt your head back and laugh at the sky. This perfect imperfection includes the cycle of life and death, the dance of growth and decay, the rhythm of coming together and falling apart. That is existence itself. Tonight, as you reflect on losses you've endured and losses you fear, remember Kissa Gotami's journey. Can you find solace in the universality of impermanence? Can you see how accepting this truth eases your pain, not by minimizing your loss, but by placing it within the vast shared experience of being human? As the Buddha ultimately taught, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of what was not yours. Let's turn to a story that reveals the wisdom of pausing judgment and staying balanced amid life's constant shifts, the parable of the farmer and the horse. Once, in a quiet village, there lived a humble farmer. Neighbors knew him for his hard work and calm manner. His farm was small, and he owned just one horse to help with daily tasks: plowing fields, hauling heavy loads, everything. Though he had little, the farmer was content with his life. One morning, the farmer woke to find his stable empty. His horse had run away. When neighbors heard the news, they flocked to his home, offering sympathy. "What terrible luck! How will you manage without your horse? This is such misfortune." But the farmer stayed calm. Looking at them, he simply said, "Maybe." The neighbors were puzzled. How can he be so unconcerned about such bad luck? They shook their heads and left, sure he was denying his loss. A few days later, to everyone's surprise, the horse returned, and it brought a herd of wild horses from the mountains. Now the farmer didn't have just one horse, but several. Neighbors rushed back, this time excited. "Wonderful! With so many horses, you're blessed with incredible fortune." Again, the farmer smiled calmly and said, "Maybe." Confusion struck again. This was clearly good luck. Why wasn't he happier? They couldn't fathom his lack of strong reaction to life's ups and downs. Days later, the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses. He was thrown violently, breaking his leg, and couldn't help with farm work for a long while. Neighbors visited once more, full of sympathy. "What bad luck! Your son is hurt, and now no one will help you. Such misfortune." The farmer replied, as before, "Maybe." Now the neighbors were utterly baffled. Why maybe for everything? Weeks later, chaos erupted and the country war broke out. Soldiers came to the village, conscripting all young men. Many in the village were taken, but the farmer's son, with his broken leg, was spared. He stayed home with his father. Neighbors visited yet again, exclaiming, "You're so lucky. Because your son was injured, he avoided the war. What great fortune!" And once more, the farmer said, "Maybe." The Buddha taught, nothing is permanent. All things change. Existence is always in flux. This truth was the foundation of the farmer's wisdom. His consistent maybe reflected a deep understanding. What seems favorable or unfavorable in one moment can shift entirely in the next. Why do we rush to judge things as good or bad? Zen points to our mind's habit of categorizing, constantly labeling experiences as desirable or undesirable, lucky or unlucky. This dualistic thinking creates an emotional roller coaster. Elation when things go well, despair when they don't. But as the farmer's story shows, we never see the full picture. We can't know how today's misfortune might prevent tomorrow's disaster, or how today's blessing might lead to tomorrow's challenge. The Zen concept of non-judgment doesn't mean apathy. The farmer wasn't emotionally detached from his life. Instead, he embodied what the Buddha called equanimity, a perspective that stays balanced amid life's inevitable ups and downs, without letting inner peace depend on shifting circumstances. Zen. Master Senken wrote in Faith in Mind, "The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences." When we stop demanding life fit our ideas of how things should be, we find deeper freedom opening to life's inherent wisdom, which often unfolds in ways our limited perspective can't predict. The Buddha taught, "Do not overestimate what you gain, nor envy others. Those who envy will never find inner peace." How often do we compare our circumstances to others, then label ourselves lucky or unlucky based on those comparisons? The farmer's neighbors constantly judged his situation through their ideas of good and bad, while the farmer remained free from such limiting views. Modern life is full of chances to practice this maybe mindset. The promotion you didn't get might lead to a more fulfilling opportunity elsewhere. A relationship that ended painfully could create space for greater self-discovery. An illness might force you to reevaluate priorities. A financial setback could teach resilience. In hindsight, many of us recognize moments that seemed unfortunate, but ultimately brought growth or unexpected blessings. The 13th century poet Rumi captured this wisdom. What seems a curse may be a blessing. What seems a blessing may be a curse. The farmer's understanding wasn't an intellectual concept, but a lived reality. His maybe wasn't passive resignation, but active wisdom. Trust that life's full story is still unfolding. The Buddha said, "There is no east or west in the sky." People create such distinctions in their minds, then believe them to be real. Similarly, the divide between good and bad luck is our own mental creation. Reality itself is just a flow. Causes and conditions are not inherently positive or negative. Tonight, as you reflect on recent events you've labeled good or bad, try seeing them through the farmer's gentle maybe. Notice how this perspective eases anxiety about difficult situations and softens attachment to pleasant ones. Can you find freedom in pausing judgment about how things should be? As the Buddha taught, we create the world with our thoughts. The farmer's maybe reminds us we always choose how to interpret our experiences, and that choice shapes our inner peace more than anything else. Our next story reveals the power of non-reactivity and emotional mastery, the tale of the Buddha and the angry man. Long ago, as the Buddha taught a group of disciples in a peaceful forest, a man approached, his eyes blazing with rage. He'd heard of the Buddha's wisdom and teachings, yet felt threatened by his influence over others. Filled with jealousy and resentment, he'd come to confront the Buddha and publicly insult him in front of his followers. While the Buddha sat calmly in the shade of a Bodhi tree, the man stormed up to him and began hurling abuse. "You're nothing but a fraud," he shouted. "Who do you think you are? You may pretend to be wise and enlightened, but you're just deceiving everyone." The Buddha remained perfectly calm, unperturbed by the man's harsh words. His expression didn't flicker. He gave no reaction to the anger. Seeing no response, the man grew more furious. "How dare you sit there acting superior? Do you think you're better than everyone else? I'd sooner spit on the ground than respect someone like you." Despite the man's escalating rage, the Buddha stayed silent and serene, watching him with nothing but compassion. Finally, after shouting for minutes, the man exhausted himself. He'd expected to provoke a reaction, but the Buddha's tranquility left him confused. Gasping for breath, he demanded, "Why aren't you speaking? Why don't you defend yourself? Don't you care what I think of you?" The Buddha looked at him kindly, then spoke at last in a soft, steady voice. "Tell me," he asked gently, "if someone offers you a gift and you refuse to accept it, who does the gift belong to?" Puzzled by the question, the man thought. For a moment, "It still belongs to the giver. If I don't accept it, the gift remains theirs." The Buddha nodded. "In the same way, if you offer me your anger and I refuse to accept it, who does the anger belong to?" The man was stunned by the Buddha's words. He realized his rage hadn't affected the Buddha at all. It was his own burden to carry. Buddha continued, "If I refuse to take in your insults and anger, they fall back on you. It is you who suffers, not me. I choose not to be troubled by your words. I choose peace." The man stood silently, pondering this truth. He saw that his anger had consumed him, leaving the Buddha untouched. In that moment, he understood, clinging to anger would only hurt himself. Overcome with shame, he bowed his head. "Master, I see now my anger brings me only pain. How can I learn to be as peaceful as you?" The Buddha smiled warmly, his compassion shining bright. Anger is like a red-hot coal you pick up to throw at someone. In the process, you are the one who gets burned. Let go of the coal. Let go of your anger. Instead, practice mindfulness, compassion, and understanding, and you will find peace. The Buddha taught, "You will not be punished for your anger. You will be punished by your anger." This profound insight illuminates why reactive emotions cause so much suffering. When we cling to anger or resentment, we harm ourselves far more than those we direct it toward. Every moment spent in anger is a moment stolen from peace. Every vengeful thought diverts energy from healing. Why do we cling to anger so fiercely? Zen identifies several underlying patterns. First is our righteousness trap. We believe our anger is justified, so we cling to it, conflating letting go of anger with condoning wrongs. The Buddha's wisdom shows us standing up for boundaries and justice doesn't require being consumed by rage. Second is our tendency to identify with emotions. We say, "I am angry," instead of "I am experiencing anger." This fusion makes anger feel like part of our identity, as if releasing it means betraying ourselves. Zen practice creates space between awareness and emotion, observing it without being swallowed by it. Third is cultural conditioning. Many of us are taught anger is powerful, that it drives action and earns respect. Yet the Buddha's response to the angry man reveals true strength, not aggressive reaction, but unshakable balance. The Buddha said, "Hatred never ceases by hatred. Only love ceases hatred." This is no passive resignation, but a truth about conflict. Meeting hostility with hostility only perpetuates the cycle. Responding with understanding breaks it. The gift metaphor is particularly illuminating. Emotions, like anger, criticism, and judgment, are offerings. If we refuse to accept them, they remain with the giver. This non-reactivity isn't cold detachment. The Buddha didn't ignore the angry man. He stayed present, engaged, and responsive. From compassion, not reactivity. From wisdom, not self-defense. This is the essence of non-reactivity in Zen, not withdrawing from engagement, but participating from a different quality of consciousness. It's called embracing anger with mindfulness, recognizing it as it arises, breathing with it, and tending to it with the same care you'd give a crying child. Neither suppressing anger nor expressing it blindly, but acknowledging it with kind awareness, understanding its causes and its impermanent nature. Buddha taught, "If you truly love yourself, you will not harm others." This reveals the link between self-care and care for others. When we react in anger, we hurt ourselves first and most directly. Choosing peace over reactivity isn't selfless sacrifice. It's the deepest form of self-care. Tonight, as you reflect on interactions that sparked anger or resentment, try the Buddha's gift metaphor. Can you see you have a choice whether to accept others' negative gifts? Can you feel the freedom in refusing these offerings? Remember the Buddha's words. Clinging to anger is like holding a hot coal, intending to throw it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. In releasing that coal, you free yourself and create space for true resolution. Our next story explores the wisdom of impermanence and non-attachment, the tale of the monk and the teacup. In a quiet mountain temple, there lived a revered monk who led a life of deep contemplation and mindfulness. His students admired his wisdom, calm demeanor, and ability to embrace the present moment without being disturbed by the chaos of the world. Each day, the monk would meditate, drink tea, and share teachings with his disciples. One afternoon, during their usual tea ceremony, the monk lifted a simple clay teacup and stared at it for a long time. The cup's understated beauty, its soft earth tones, and perfect rounded shape held his attention. The students, curious about their teacher's silent contemplation, waited eagerly for his words. After a while, the monk smiled and said, "This teacup is already broken." The students exchanged confused glances. The cup was clearly intact. One young student could no longer contain his curiosity. "Master, the cup isn't broken. It's in perfect condition. Why do you say it's already broken?" Still smiling, the monk gently placed the cup on the table before him. "It is already broken," he said softly. "It may look whole now, but one day, perhaps tomorrow, perhaps years from now, it will shatter. This is inevitable. When I understand it is already broken, I can fully appreciate it as it is, without clinging to it. I can enjoy drinking from it because I know its life is fleeting." The students silently absorbed the weight of his words. They realized their teacher was speaking not just about a teacup, but about a deeper truth of life itself. The monk continued, "Everything in life is like this cup. All things, no matter how beautiful or precious, are impermanent. We cannot hold on to them forever. When we understand this, we are free to fully enjoy life without fearing the loss of what we have. We can cherish each moment, each relationship, each experience, knowing they too will pass. And when they do, we won't suffer because we've accepted their impermanence." An older student nodded thoughtfully and said, "Master, does this mean we shouldn't love or care for things, knowing they will one day disappear?" The monk shook his head gently. "No, it means quite the opposite. When we accept the impermanence of all things, we love them more deeply because we don't cling to them out of fear of loss. We love them, appreciate them, exactly as they are in this moment. We understand they are part of life's natural flow. In this way, we can live with a peaceful heart, no longer attached to what is destined to change." The Buddha taught, all conditioned things are impermanent. When one sees this with insight, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This profound truth lies at the heart of the teacup story, pointing to one of the most liberating yet challenging aspects of Zen practice. Embracing impermanence not as a philosophical concept, but as a living reality. Why do we resist impermanence so fiercely? Zen teaches that our fundamental misunderstanding of reality is the root of this resistance. We perceive things as solid, separate, and enduring, when in truth they are fluid, interconnected, and transient. This misunderstanding leads to what Buddhists call updana clinging or attachment. We desperately try to grasp what is inherently ungraspable. Consider how this attachment plays out in your daily life. We grow attached to possessions, fearing they'll be lost or damaged. We cling to relationships, trying to prevent them from changing. We hold on to youth, health, and ability, resisting the natural process of aging. We even cling to our thoughts, opinions, and identities, defending them as if they were permanent fixtures rather than fluid constructs. The monk's declaration that the cup was already broken offers a radical way of relating to impermanence. He doesn't deny or resist change. He preemptively accepts it by acknowledging the inevitable end of all things. This frees him from the anxiety of trying to prevent the unpreventable. It is not pessimism, but clear-eyed realism, which paradoxically deepens his appreciation of the present. The Buddha said, "The world is afflicted by death and decay, but the wise do not grieve, having realized the nature of the world." This teaching doesn't encourage coldness or indifference, but points to a different quality of caring one, unclouded by the impossible expectation of permanence. The monk does not love the cup less because he knows it will break. He loves it more because its existence is fleeting and precious. Zen Master D.T. Suzuki beautifully explained this paradox. When we understand the truth of impermanence and find peace within it, we discover wisdom. This peace is not achieved by surrendering to loss, but by fully embracing reality as it is. This peace allows us to engage deeply with life precisely because we stop fighting against life's fundamental nature. Practically, how can we cultivate this already broken perspective? We can start by noticing our attachments, identifying the people, things, and circumstances we fear losing most. Instead of suppressing this fear, we can gently acknowledge the impermanence of these precious aspects of our lives. We can practice saying to ourselves, "This too shall pass," not as a bleak reminder, but as an invitation to cherish the present. The Buddha taught, "Fire, wind, earth, and death cannot erase our good deeds." This points to another dimension of already broken wisdom. While all material things, including our bodies, are impermanent, the impact of our actions and the quality of our presence transcends physical form. By focusing on cultivating qualities like wisdom, compassion, and mindfulness, qualities that outlast impermanence, we find a different kind of security. Tonight, as you rest, think about the teacups in your life, the people or things you may be clinging to, fearing they will eventually break. Can you try on the monk's perspective, mentally acknowledging their impermanence, not as a threat, but as a reality that deepens their value? As the Buddha said, the problem is you think you have time. Recognizing impermanence does not diminish life's beauty, it intensifies it, inviting us to fully appreciate all that is here before it inevitably changes. Let's explore a story about true generosity and compassion, the tale of the Buddha and the robe. In ancient India, as the Buddha traveled through villages and towns sharing his teachings, he often drew large crowds. Many, inspired by his wisdom, left their lives behind to become monks and disciples under his guidance. One day, in a small village, a wealthy merchant heard of the Buddha's presence and decided to visit. Deeply moved by the Buddha's teachings, he wanted to offer a gift to honor him. The merchant brought an exquisite robe woven from the finest silk, adorned with intricate patterns, a true luxury. Approaching the Buddha, he bowed respectfully and presented the robe with devotion. "I wish to offer this robe to you as a token of gratitude for your teachings," he said. The Buddha looked at the robe, then at the merchant with a gentle smile. He felt the sincerity in the merchant's heart, yet the Buddha lived simply uninterested in material wealth or luxuries. He had few needs and taught his followers to embrace simplicity. "Thank you for your kindness," the Buddha said, "but I cannot accept this robe. It is too lavish for a humble monk like me. I am content with the robe I already wear." The merchant was surprised. "But Buddha, I offer this out of respect. Surely you deserve the very best." The Buddha smiled still. "If you truly wish to honor me, use this gift another way. Take this robe and give it to someone who really needs it, those with not even basic clothing to cover themselves. This will bring greater merit and joy." The merchant, seeing the Buddha's deep compassion for the poor, nodded slowly. He understood. True giving isn't about offering to those who have enough, but helping those who struggle. "Thank you, Buddha. I will do as you say," he replied. He took the robe and later found a poor man in the village, shivering in the cold, clad only in rags. The merchant gave him the robe, and the man's face lit up with gratitude. The next day, the merchant returned to the Buddha to share what he'd done. The Buddha nodded approvingly. "Well done, my friend. True generosity isn't giving to those who expect it or don't need it. It's helping those who truly require it. By sharing with the less fortunate, you've brought real joy and compassion to the world." The merchant bowed deeply, feeling an unprecedented warmth in his heart. He realized the Buddha's wisdom went beyond the act of accepting a gift. It lay in understanding the true nature of giving, the importance of compassion, and the joy that comes from helping others. The Buddha taught, generosity brings joy. At every stage, when forming the intention to give, in the act of giving itself, and in recalling what we've given, This insight reveals true generosity isn't just transferring material things, but transforming our hearts through the act of giving. Why did the Buddha refuse the ornate robe? Zen sees layers of wisdom in his choice. First, he embodied contentment. Unchecked desire is never satisfied. The Buddha's satisfaction with his simple robe showed freedom from the cycle of craving more. Second, he recognized that true generosity hinges on need, not status. By directing the merchant to the poor, the Buddha taught compassion should be guided by wisdom, not custom or rank. Third, he understood the merchant's motive. The merchant sought to honor him, but the Buddha showed a deeper way, alleviating suffering directly, rather than adding luxury to a life already sufficient. In our consumer culture, we often equate giving with buying expensive gifts for those who don't need them, measuring generosity by price tags rather than impact. The Buddha's teaching invites us to rethink this, to notice where our resources can make the greatest difference. The Buddha said, "If you knew what I know about the power of giving, you would never miss a chance to share, even a single meal." This speaks to generosity's transformative power, not just for recipients, but givers. Every sincere act of giving weakens our self-centeredness, strengthening our connection to others. We realize our happiness is bound to all beings' happiness. Zen practice encourages perfect generosity, giving not just material things, but time, attention, and presence. Sometimes the most precious gift is being fully with someone, listening without agenda. The story also emphasizes discernment in giving. The Buddha didn't tell the merchant to keep or sell the robe, but to find someone who truly needed it. This reminds us, giving requires seeing deeply, not just going through the motions. The Buddha taught, the greatest gift is the act of giving itself. When we give from compassion, not duty, social pressure, or self-gratification, inner transformation happens. This is what Buddhists call mudita, joy in others' well-being. Tonight, reflect on your own acts of giving. Do they align with the Buddha's teaching, directing resources, care, and attention to those who truly need them? Can you feel the difference between giving out of obligation and giving from the heart? Remember the Buddha's words. To know the power of sharing is to never hold back. The stain of selfishness fades when we let generosity fill our hearts. Next is a little-known Zen story that holds profound wisdom about mastering the mind. The tale of two monks and a river. Two monks, one elderly and one young, were traveling long distances together. Their path took them through forests, over mountains, and across valleys. For most of the journey, they walked in silence, focusing on the steadiness of each step and the rhythm of each breath. One day, they approached a river and saw a young woman standing on the bank. She wore fine silk garments, her brows furrowed with worry. Recent rains had swollen the river, and she dared not cross, afraid the rushing current would ruin her clothes, or worse, sweep her away. Spotting the monks, she called out in urgency, "Kind masters, can you help me cross the river? I must get to the other side, but I'm too frightened to wade through." Without hesitation, the elder monk stepped forward, gently lifted the woman in his arms, and carried her through the water to the opposite bank. The woman bowed in thanks and hurried on her way. The two monks continued their journey in silence. But the young monk was clearly troubled. He frowned, kept glancing at his companion, his eyes full of confusion and disapproval. After walking for hours, he finally couldn't hold back. "Master," he said, "as monks, we've sworn not to touch women. How could you carry that woman across the river?" The elder monk smiled and looked at him. "I set her down on the riverbank hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" The young monk was stunned. He realized, while his companion had held the woman for mere minutes, out of compassion and practical need, he himself had been carrying her in his mind for hours, burdened by judgment. disturbed by inner turmoil. The Buddha taught, "What we think, we become." This explains why the young monk's mental burden was far heavier than any physical load the elder had briefly borne. The elder responded to the moment's need with compassion, then returned to the present. The young monk, however, remained trapped in the past, replaying the scene in his mind over and over. Why do we so often carry unnecessary mental burdens like the young monk? Zen points to several patterns. First, we cling to rules and concepts literally, not their spirit. The young monk, fixated on the letter of the monastic rule, missing the essence of living with purity and compassion. His rigid interpretation blinded him to the true Buddhist kindness in the elder's act. That second, we tend to judge and overthink one thought leads to another, spinning complex narratives and evaluations that pull us from the present. The young monk's initial observations snowballed into hours of internal criticism, confusion, and unnecessary suffering. Third, we struggle to distinguish between skillful reflection and unskillful rumination. While reflecting on the past can aid learning, clinging to it disrupts peace. The elder showed the ability to act decisively when needed, then let go completely. In daily life, we all carry similar invisible burdens. Rehashing last week's argument, fixating on a work mistake, or worrying about future scenarios that may never come. These mental patterns are like carrying someone across a river and refusing to put them down. The Buddha said, "Let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present." Beyond existence, the mind is liberated from all, not dwelling in earth and death. This teaches that freedom comes when we release mental bonds and return to the simplicity of the present. Zen practice offers concrete ways to mental burdens. Mindfulness meditation trains us to notice when we're carrying unnecessary thoughts and gently release them. Labeling thoughts as thinking helps us recognize them as mental constructs, not reality. Focusing on physical sensations, the feel of our feet on the ground, the rhythm of our breath grounds us in the present. The elder embodied what Zen calls mushin, no mind, not the absence of thoughts, but freedom from clinging to them. He could think clearly when needed, act with compassion when called, and return to the calm emptiness of the present. This state is available to each of us when we learn to what's no longer needed. Tonight, as you think of the day past or the day ahead, can you notice if you're unnecessarily carrying someone or something in your mind? Can you feel the freedom of gently these mental burdens? Remember the Buddha's words, "Nothing is worth clinging to." In that release lies true peace. Let's explore a story about the barriers we create within ourselves, the tale of the empty cup. A respected university professor once visited a Zen master, seeking wisdom about Zen. He had spent years studying philosophy and religious texts and written several books on comparative spirituality. Though he considered himself knowledgeable, he was curious about Zen's unique perspective. When he arrived at the master's simple dwelling, the elderly Zen teacher greeted him warmly and invited him to sit. The professor began, "I've come to ask about Zen. I want to know your teachings and how they differ from the many philosophies I've already studied." The master smiled. "Let's have tea first, then we'll talk about Zen." The professor nodded, expecting that after this routine tea ceremony, he could dive into the serious philosophical discussion he traveled so far for. The master brewed tea with focused, deliberate movements. When it was ready, he placed a cup in front of the professor and began pouring. The cup filled quickly, but the master kept pouring tea spilled over the edge, onto the table, the professor's robes, and the floor. The professor jumped up in alarm. "Stop! The cup is full, it can't hold more." The master stopped pouring and looked straight at him. "Like this cup, you're filled with your own opinions, theories, and assumptions. How can I teach you Zen unless you first empty your cup?" The professor was stunned into silence. In that moment, he realized his vast knowledge had become a barrier, not a bridge to new understanding. His cup was too full for anything new to enter. With this humbling insight, he bowed to the master, now ready to begin true learning. The Buddha taught, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, few." This emphasizes the importance of openness, what Zen calls beginner's mind. Approaching life with fresh eyes keeps us open to infinite potential. Believing we already know closes us off to new insights. Why do we so easily fill our cups? To overflowing? Zen identifies several universal human tendencies. First is the ego's need for certainty and control. Convincing ourselves we understand how things are creates an illusion of safety in an inherently uncertain world. Our views and beliefs become fortresses against the fear of the unknown. Second is attachment to identity. We define who we are largely by accumulated knowledge, experiences, and opinions. Emptying the cup feels threatening. It challenges our sense of self. If I let go of what I know, who am I? This fear makes us cling to full cups, even when they no longer serve us. Third is what Buddhists call comparison mind. We constantly measure ourselves against others, and in academic or professional settings, knowing more than others becomes a source of status. The professor's identity and reputation rested on being knowledgeable, making it hard to adopt the stance of not knowing. The cost of a full cup isn't just limited learning. When our minds are stuffed with preconceptions, we experience life through distorting filters, seeing not what's actually there, but what our existing knowledge tells us should be there. We force reality into our limited understanding, missing its true richness. Zen practice offers concrete ways to empty the cup. Meditation trains us to notice how quickly we label, categorize, and judge experiences, creating space between raw perception and conceptual overlay. Practicing letting go of what we think we know to meet reality directly. The Buddha said, "We create the world with our thoughts." When thoughts are rigid, the world becomes small and predictable. When we empty the cup, approaching life with openness and humility, the world reveals its infinite wonder. In daily life, notice when your cup is full, interrupting others mid-sentence, missing the uniqueness of familiar moments, or assuming you know someone too well for them. To surprise you, tonight, as you rest, try emptying your cup, letting go of what you know about relaxation, sleep, even these stories. Can you listen with new ears, as if hearing them for the first time? Can you feel the spaciousness that comes from releasing the need to evaluate, analyze, or categorize? As the Buddha taught, empty the water from your boat, and it will sail, lightly and swiftly. Similarly, when we empty our minds of preconceptions, life flows with ease and joy. Let's explore a story about finding wisdom in unexpected places, the tale of the Zen master and the muddy road. A Zen master and his disciples were traveling through the countryside. The rainy season had turned the path into a quagmire, making each step a struggle. They walked mindfully, focusing on the ground beneath their feet, until they reached a small hill topped with a beautiful temple. Its golden roof glowed in the sun, and the group decided to visit. The temple was magnificent. Intricate carvings, gilded statues, and immaculately tended gardens. Inside, monks in pristine robes performed elaborate rituals with precise movements and melodic chants. The disciples were dazzled by the temple's grandeur and the monks' devotion to ceremony. After observing for a while, they gathered outside with their master. One disciple asked, "Master, what do you think of this temple and its practices? Is this the path to enlightenment?" The master didn't answer immediately. Instead, he led the disciples back to the muddy road they'd traversed. He stopped at a particularly mucky spot, knelt down, and pressed his hand into the mud. Then he drew a circle in the dirt. Looking at his disciples, he said, "Truth can be found here too." The disciples were confused at first, but slowly understanding dawned. The master was showing them, enlightenment isn't confined to beautiful temples or perfect rituals. The mud usually avoided, overlooked held the same ultimate reality as the gilded temple. With eyes to see, true wisdom can be found anywhere. The Buddha taught, if you cannot find truth where you are, where else do you expect to find it? This insight is the heart of the Master's mud circle. It challenges our tendency to seek enlightenment in special places, extraordinary experiences, or perfect conditions, rather than in the raw, immediate reality of our lives. Why is it hard to recognize wisdom in ordinary moments? Zen points to our habitual spiritual materialism, treating spirituality as another form of acquisition. We believe enlightenment comes from accumulating special experiences, teachings, or credentials, rather than penetrating the reality of our daily lives. The mud represents life's aspects we usually try to avoid or transcend: messy emotions, uncomfortable sensations, tedious tasks, imperfect relationships. These make up most of our human experience. Yet we think spiritual growth means rising above this muddy reality, unaware they contain the very wisdom we seek. In Japanese aesthetics, there's a concept called wabi-sabi, finding beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and incompleteness. The mud circle embodies this view, inviting us to discover depth in what seems common or flawed: the crack in a teacup, the wrinkles on an aging face, a garden that's slightly wild. Seen with clear eyes, these flaws hold their own unique wisdom and beauty. Zen Master Dogen wrote, if you cannot find truth where you are, where else do you expect to find it? Echoing the Buddha, he points to the error of externalizing seeking outward for what can only be found within. The temples we build, rituals we perform, scriptures we study, these are fingers pointing at the moon, not the moon itself. Practically, how do we live the mud circle's wisdom? Start by turning curiosity toward daily moments we usually ignore. Washing dishes, waiting in line, feeling tired, navigating conflict. Instead of seeing these as obstacles to our spiritual practice, recognize them as its foundation. The Buddha said, my teachings are not philosophy. They are the result of direct experience. True wisdom isn't learned intellectually, but through direct contact with life itself. The mud on the road offers an immediacy no of temple rituals can match. Tonight, as you rest, think of the mud circles in your life, the ordinary challenges or uncomfortable aspects you usually avoid or rush to fix. Can you meet them with the same attention you'd give a beautiful sunset or profound teaching? Can you feel the wisdom waiting to be discovered in these unexpected places? As the Buddha taught, all experiences are guided by the mind. The mind creates all. When we meet even the muckiest moments with open curiosity, we transform them from obstacles into paths toward deeper understanding. Let's tell a story about the wisdom of a true master, the tale of the divine archer. In ancient China, there was a master archer whose extraordinary skill was renowned across the land. His arrows never missed, his fame spread far and wide, and even the emperor recognized his talent, bestowing honors and wealth upon him. One day, a young archer approached the master. Having heard tales of the elder's legendary abilities, the young man was eager to learn his secret. With a deep bow, he said, I've practiced archery for years and gained some skill, but I hope to reach the highest level like you. Please share the technique that makes your arrows never miss. The master archer looked at the young man thoughtfully and replied, meet me at dawn tomorrow on the mountain. Bring your bow and arrows. The next morning, the eager student arrived at the appointed spot where the master was waiting. Instead of going to a practice field, they stood at the edge of a cliff with a deep chasm below. The master led the young archer to the cliff's edge, where the ground dropped hundreds of feet, straight down to the valley below. Standing in this perilous spot, the master took position, drew his bow, and shot an arrow into the distance. Then he turned to the student and said, "Now you stand here and shoot." The young archer cautiously stepped to the edge, stared at the dizzying drop, and felt his heart race, his knees weaken. When he tried to shoot, his hands trembled. After several attempts, he stepped back from the edge. "Master, I can't shoot from here," he admitted. "The height makes me dizzy. Fear makes my hands shake. How can I hit the target when I'm afraid of falling?" The master nodded gently and said, "This is the secret you seek. The difference between you as isn't skill or strength. When I shoot, there is only the arrow, the bow, and the target, no fear, no thoughts of success or failure, no awareness of being watched or praised, not even a sense of myself doing the shooting. Only the perfect union of archer and target." He continued, "You miss not because your technique is lacking, but because your mind is divided. Part of you shoots, while another part fears falling, hopes for success, worries about failure, and clings to self-consciousness. When you can fully immerse yourself, undisturbed by fear or desire, you will reach the state you seek." The young archer bowed deeply, realizing he had learned a lesson more valuable than any technique. He had been shown the true path to mastery, not just in archery, but in all aspects of life. The Buddha taught, "Your work is to discover your world, and then with all your heart give yourself to it." This perfectly captures the essence of the master archer's wisdom. True excellence in any field comes not just from skill, but from total presence and the dissolution of the separate self that creates inner division. Why do we struggle to achieve such focus? Zen identifies several factors that fragment our awareness. First is habitual self-consciousness. There's a part of the mind that evaluates performance, compares to others, and seeks approval, creating an artificial separation between self and action. Second is attachment to outcomes. Fixation on success or failure, praise or criticism, rewards or punishment. When we're shooting in life, literally or metaphorically obsessing over will it hit introduces tension and hesitation that disrupt natural ability. Third is unnecessary fear. While fear is a survival instinct in real danger, it's often overactivated in everyday challenges. The young archer's fear of falling mirrors how we hesitate to fully engage, fearing threats to our safety, image, or self-worth. In Japanese Zen. This state of complete absorption is called mushin, no mind, or zenshin, remaining mind, where the boundary between subject and object dissolves, and action flows without self-conscious interference. Athletes call it being in the zone. Artists know it intimately. The Buddha said, "As a solid rock is not shaken by the storm, the wise are not disturbed by praise or blame." This stability comes not from rigidity, but from full immersion in the present activity, unconcerned with others' opinions or external standards. Zen practice cultivates this capacity through formal meditation and focused daily activities. In Zazen, sitting meditation, we practice letting go of thoughts and returning to simple presence again and again. In activities like archery, calligraphy, tea ceremony, or martial arts, we train to bring that same single-minded focus to action. In your own life, you've likely experienced moments of such complete absorption, perhaps in sports, creating art, solving a challenging problem, or even activities like washing dishes or walking in nature. In these moments, the separate self fades temporarily, and we taste the joy of pure engagement. The Master Archer's lesson applies to everything we do, whether conversing, working on a project, caring for others, or preparing a meal. Can you bring your whole being to the activity? Can you notice when you're distracted, when part of you is present and part is worrying, planning, or judging? As the Buddha taught, there is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path. The fulfillment we seek lies not in achieving outcomes, but in the presence we bring to each moment. Tonight, as you prepare to sleep, can you rest with the same single-minded focus as the archer, without trying to force sleep or worrying about getting enough? Can you simply lie down, feel the weight of your body on the bed, and follow the natural rhythm of your breath? Remember the Buddha's words, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The tranquility you seek is available, in the full acceptance of this moment, just as it is. Let's explore a story about solving problems in unexpected ways, the tale of the Zen master and the heavy stone. In a small village surrounded by mountains, a main road was partially blocked by a huge boulder that had fallen from a cliff. The stone was massive and heavy. Villagers had tried everything to move it, but it wouldn't budge. A few strong men pushed together until their muscles burned, but the boulder stayed rooted. Others hacked at it with tools, hoping to split it into pieces, but the stone was unnaturally hard, only leaving faint scratches. Some dug around it, trying to lever it loose, but the ground was too compact, and the stone was embedded too deep. After countless failed attempts, the villagers decided to ask a Zen master from a nearby temple for help. He was known for his wisdom and creative solutions to tough problems. When the villagers explained their dilemma, the master agreed to come see the stone. As the old master walked slowly toward the obstacle, a crowd gathered. Everyone expected him to share some profound technique or organize a better way to move the heavy boulder. Reaching the stone, the master circled it slowly, examining it from every angle. Villagers watched, anxious for his solution. Finally, he stopped, looked at the crowd, and asked, "Why must the stone be moved?" The villagers were confused. "Because it blocks the road," one replied. "It makes passing hard, slows us down." The master nodded thoughtfully. "The stone blocks one path, but maybe it opens another." He then led the villagers to clear and widen a path around the stone. With everyone pitching in, they soon had a smooth alternate route winding past the boulder. This new path didn't just solve their problem. The massive stone became a landmark, a natural monument that gave their village a unique identity. Kids played on it. Elders rested in its shade. Over time, villagers grew to appreciate the obstacle they'd once hated. Before leaving, the master said, "Some obstacles can't be removed. Wisdom is learning to live with them or around them. What seems to block your way may actually be pointing you toward a new direction." The Buddha taught, "As an arrowsmith straightens his arrow, a master guides his wandering thoughts." This highlights the importance of skillful direction, not forcing thoughts down a predetermined path, but gently leading them to creative solutions. The villagers were so focused on moving the stone, they couldn't see other options. Why do we get stuck on one way to solve problems? Zen identifies mental patterns that limit our perspective. First is clinging to shoulds, fixed ideas of how things ought to be. The villagers were sure the only solution was moving the stone to restore the road to its original state. Second is rigidity, or fixed mindset. When efforts fail, we often try harder with the same method instead of stepping back to rethink. Like the villagers pushing harder when the stone didn't move, or hacking more when tools scratched it, never considering maybe we don't need to move it. Third is failing to question assumptions. The villagers assumed the stone is the problem, not we need a usable road. By reframing the stone isn't the enemy. We just need a path. The master uncovered possibilities invisible within the original framework. Zen practice cultivates mental flexibility through koans, paradoxical questions like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Or, what was your original face before your parents were born? These short-circuit logical analysis, forcing the mind to operate differently. This trains lateral thinking, approaching problems from unexpected angles. The Buddha said, "We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think." When minds stay trapped in familiar patterns, solutions stay limited. Cultivating flexibility opens us to innovative approaches hidden beyond our usual view. In your life, think of challenges you've struggled with: difficult relationships, work roadblocks, personal habits. Have you been pushing a heavy stone, repeating the same solutions with little success? What if, like the Zen master, you step back to question your basic assumptions about the problem? The Japanese concept of ma, the space between things, offers insight. Sometimes solutions lie not in the elements themselves, but in their relationship. The villagers found answers not in the stone or the original road alone, but in reimagining how they could coexist. Tonight, reflecting on life's challenges, try the master's approach. Ask, what if this obstacle isn't meant to be removed, but integrated? What new path might it reveal? Remember the Buddha's teaching: no matter how tough the past, you can begin again. Every moment offers a chance to see problems with fresh eyes and discover solutions hidden beyond your usual perspective. Let's tell a story about the power of letting go and the freedom it brings, the tale of two traveling monks. Two Buddhist monks, Tenzin and Aikido, were traveling together along a muddy country road during the rainy season. Heavy rains poured down, flooding parts of the path, making the journey grueling. As they rounded a bend, they encountered a young woman in a silk kimono and obi, unable to cross a large mud puddle blocking the road. She stood hesitating at the edge, clearly distressed about ruining her fine clothes. Without a word, Tenzin went to the woman, lifted her in his arms, carried her through the mire, and set her safely on the other side. The woman bowed in thanks and continued on her way. The two monks walked in silence for hours. Finally, Aikido couldn't hold back. "Brother Tenzin," he said, "we monks should not approach women, especially young, lovely ones. It's dangerous. Why did you do that?" Tenzin replied calmly, "I left the girl at the riverbank." "Are you still carrying her?" Aikido suddenly realized he'd been carrying a burden for hours, not a physical woman, but the weight of judgment, worry, and mental anxiety. Tenzin had responded with compassion to a moment's need, then fully returned to the present journey. Aikido, however, had lingered on the event long after it ended. The Buddha taught, let go of the past, let go of the future, let go of the present, cross over to the other shore of existence. This teaching perfectly embodies Tenzin's wisdom. He understood that true freedom comes not from rigidly following external rules, but from maintaining internal freedom, being able to respond appropriately to each situation, then move forward without clinging. Why do we, like Aikido, often carry unnecessary mental burdens? Zen Buddhism identifies several factors that keep us attached to what should be released. First is our tendency to ruminate, replaying past events we cannot change. This mental habit drains energy that could be used in the present and often amplifies negative emotions like anger, guilt, or anxiety. Second is our attachment to rules over principles. Aikido is so focused on the monastic rule of avoiding women that he missed its spirit, cultivating purity of heart and intention. Tenzin, by contrast, understood that compassion sometimes requires breaking conventions and that true purity lies in freedom from selfish desire, not strict rule following. Third is what Buddhists call papanka mental proliferation, where one thought leads to another and another, creating complex narratives that exist only in our minds. Aikido's initial observation snowballed into hours of internal commentary about propriety, risk, and his companion's behavior, all unnecessary, self-inflicted suffering. Zen practice trains us to recognize when we're carrying what can be. Through meditation, we develop the ability to observe our thoughts without being carried away by them. We learn to distinguish between beneficial reflection and unproductive rumination, cultivating the skill of returning again and again to the simplicity and freedom of the present. The Buddha said, In the end, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you. This teaching invites us to consider what we might be carrying that no longer serves us: resentment over past hurts, anxiety about an uncertain future, or judgments of ourselves and others. In Japanese Zen, there's a concept called kai, literally touching the heart. During intensive meditation retreats, practitioners have the chance to notice what they're unnecessarily carrying and experience the lightness of releasing those burdens. This letting go isn't about forgetting or denying our experiences, but preventing them from becoming obstacles to fully living in the present thought in your daily life. Notice when you're carrying something long after the actual event has passed, perhaps rehashing a conversation, worrying over a mistake, or harboring resentment. Can you, like Tanzen, respond appropriately to the demands of each moment, then return to the present without residue? The Buddha taught, happiness never decreases by being shared. Similarly, inner peace never decreases when we let go of what we no longer need to carry. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, try the mental burdens of your day. Imagine gently placing each worry, each unresolved situation, each judgment or concern on the ground beside you. They'll still be there if you need to pick them up again. But for now, feel the ease and spaciousness of traveling light, even if just for the night. Remember Tanzen's wisdom. True freedom isn't about avoiding life's mud, but crossing through it when necessary, then continuing on with a clear heart. Let's explore a story about the power of inner stillness, the tale of the cricket in the temple. In a bustling Japanese city, a grand temple stood for centuries, its golden roof glinting in the sun. Despite the surrounding chaos of modern life, traffic, construction, crowds of tourists, a profound calm permeated the temple walls. One day, a young musician visited the temple. He studied both music and meditation and was curious about the quality of silence that seemed to seep through the sacred space. He sat quietly in a corner of the main hall, closed his eyes, and focused on his hearing, trying to understand what made this silence so special. To his surprise, beneath the occasional footsteps of visitors and distant city noises, he detected a faint, rhythmic sound so delicate it was almost imperceptible. Intrigued, he followed the sound to its source. A small cricket living in a tiny crack in an ancient wooden pillar. The musician marveled that such a small creature could be heard in such a large space. He approached an elderly monk sweeping the temple floor and asked, "Venerable one, have you noticed the cricket living in that pillar?" The old monk smiled. "Ah, you've heard our little friend. He's lived in the temple for many years. But with the city so noisy outside, how can such a faint sound be heard in this vast temple?" The musician asked. The monk put down his broom and gestured for the young man to follow. He led the musician to the temple entrance, then pulled a coin from his robes. "Watch," he said, and dropped the coin on the stone ground. At the clink, nearly every visitor in the temple turned to look. The monk turned to the puzzled musician. "People hear what they're trained to hear," he said gently. "The coin's sound is no louder than the cricket's, but everyone noticed it because money speaks to them. They've learned to listen for it. The cricket sings day and night, but few notice because they aren't listening for that sound." He continued, "Those who quiet their inner noise can hear what others miss, not just the cricket, but the steady murmur of wisdom beneath life's chaos. True silence isn't the absence of sound. It's attentive listening." The young musician bowed deeply, understanding he'd received a lesson more valuable than any musical skill. He'd learned the difference between hearing and listening, between outer quiet and true inner stillness. The Buddha taught, "The patient one is the greatest warrior." This speaks to the power of inner calm. The toughest battles aren't with external foes, but with our own inner clamor, the chatter of thoughts, judgments, desires, and fears that drown out the subtle wisdom available in each moment. Why do we struggle to hear life's cricket songs? Zen identifies several sources of inner noise. First, our habit of prioritizing certain inputs over others. Like everyone noticing the coin but few hearing the cricket, we're trained to focus on dramatic events, loud sounds, and urgent demands, ignoring subtler experiences that may hold deeper truths. Second, what Zen calls monkey mind, restless tendency of consciousness to leap from one thought to another, rarely pausing long enough to perceive what lies beneath the surface. This internal chatter creates a veil between us and direct experience, filtering reality through layers of concepts and commentary. Third, the fading of wonder and presence. Children naturally notice crickets, ants, cloud patterns, and other small phenomena they haven't learned to dismiss what seems insignificant. As adults, we often lose this unfiltered perception, missing the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. Zen practice cultivates what's called active silence, not the absence of thought, but an alert receptivity that lets us perceive beyond habitual patterns. Through meditation, we train ourselves to notice when we're caught in inner monologue and gently return to simple presence. It's not about suppressing thoughts, but learning to listen between and beneath them. The Buddha said, "All that we are is the result of what we have thought. The mind is everything. What we think, we become." When our minds are cluttered with constant noise, we grow noisy, too distracted, fragmented, unable to access the deeper wisdom of stillness. In Japanese aesthetics, there's a concept called meaningful pauses, or spaces that give form to the whole. In music, silence between notes creates rhythm. In conversation, attentive pauses allow deeper understanding. In life, moments of quiet acceptance often hold the most profound insights. The temple cricket represents all the subtle voices of wisdom that speak continuously beneath the surface of our awareness, the intuitions we ignore, the natural rhythms we overlook, the quiet warnings we dismiss, and the gentle beauties we miss. When we cultivate inner stillness, these voices become audible, offering guidance the noisy mind can't access. Tonight, as you rest in this moment's calm, can you look past your thoughts and listen for the faint cricket in your consciousness? Maybe you'll notice the rhythm of your breath, usually ignored, or a quiet intuition about a situation in your life. As the Buddha taught, the quieter you become, the more you hear. In nurturing this inner stillness, we discover the wisdom we seek has been speaking all along. We just weren't quiet enough to listen. As we continue our journey through Zen wisdom, let's explore a story that teaches the power of presence, the tale of the Zen master and the strawberry. A Zen student approached his teacher, troubled. "Master," he said, "I've studied Zen for 3 years, yet my mind remains restless. When I meditate, thoughts swarm like bees. When I try to stay mindful during the day, I find myself pulled away by worries of the future and regrets of the past. How can I find peace?" The master listened carefully, then said, "Come with me. I want to show you something." He led the student out of the monastery and down a narrow mountain path. They walked in silence for nearly an hour, arriving at a high cliff overlooking a breathtaking valley. Far below, a river wound through forests and meadows. Glistening in the afternoon sun, the master gestured for the student to sit at the cliff's edge. Once both were settled, he reached into his robes and pulled out 2 ripe strawberries, placing one before each of them. The master picked up his strawberry and said, "Eat." Though confused by the seemingly trivial instruction, the student obeyed. He bit into the strawberry, and its sweetness, tartness, and rich aroma exploded on his tongue. He'd eaten strawberries many times before, yet somehow this one tasted different. As they ate in silence, the master noticed the student's look of wonder. When they'd finished, the master asked, "Tell me while you ate the strawberry, Where was your mind? The student paused, then realized it was here. I was completely absorbed in the taste of the strawberry. The master continued, in those moments, were you troubled by thoughts of past or future? Did you get distracted by worries or regrets? No, the student said, clarity dawning. There was only the strawberry. The master smiled. That is the peace you seek. It does not come from eliminating thoughts or achieving a special state. It comes from fully meeting whatever is before you, a strawberry, a breath, a task, even a difficult emotion. When you are truly present, past and future cannot touch you. They exist only in thought, and when thought dissolves into pure experience, peace arises naturally. But the student protested. Strawberries are easy to be present with. They're pleasant. What about when I face something difficult or painful? The master nodded. A good question. The practice is the same, though certainly more challenging. Presence is always available, whether you face a strawberry or a snake, joy or sorrow, praise or blame. The nature of what you encounter may change, but the quality of awareness you bring to it need not. That is the great freedom of Zen practice. The student bowed deeply, grateful for the lesson. From that day on, he approached his practice differently. Instead of struggling to eliminate thoughts or reach a state of calm, he focused on being, fully present in each moment, each activity, each breath. To his surprise, the peace he'd been searching for had been present all along, in the most ordinary experiences of his life. The Buddha taught, do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. This teaching points to the direct path to peace, not by escaping our current experience, but by fully entering it. The strawberry represents any ordinary moment that, when met with full presence, reveals its extraordinary depth. Why do we struggle so fiercely to live in the present? Zen Buddhism identifies several patterns that pull us away. First is our habitual time travel. The mind tends to swing constantly between past and future, revisiting what happened or anticipating what might. This mental movement is so constant. We barely notice it, yet it continuously pulls us from direct experience. Second is our evaluation system. The mind automatically categorizes experiences as pleasant, unpleasant, desirable, undesirable, important, unimportant. This ceaseless judging creates a subtle resistance to what's actually happening. As we mentally chase what we like and push away what we don't. Third is our pursuit of special experiences. The belief that peace or happiness must come in specific packaging with qualities distinct from our daily lives. This misunderstanding makes us overlook the profound beauty and wholeness available in simple moments. Like tasting a strawberry, the Japanese concept of Ichigo Ichi one meeting, one opportunity captures the preciousness of each unrepeatable moment. It reminds us, this particular experience, this breath, this feeling, this interaction will never occur in exactly the same way again. When we truly understand this, presence is no longer a practice, it's inevitable, because we naturally want to honor each moment's unique gift. Zen trains this capacity for presence through formal meditation and daily activity. In Zazen, sitting, meditation, we repeatedly notice when thoughts wander and gently return to the simplicity of breath and posture. In daily life, walking, eating, cleaning, or working become opportunities to practice coming back to the present. The Buddha said, the secret of health for both mind and body is not to mourn for the past, worry about the future, or anticipate troubles, but to live wisely and earnestly in the present. This wisdom reminds us, presence isn't just a spiritual exercise, but the foundation of happiness in all areas of life. Tonight, as you rest, can you bring the quality of presence you felt while eating the strawberry to the experience of preparing for sleep? Can you feel the weight and texture of your body against the bed? Can you notice the rhythm of your breath, the gradual relaxation of your muscles? As the Buddha taught, wherever you are, be fully there. In that full presence lies the peace that has always been, waiting only for your focused attention to reveal itself. Let's tell a story about clearing the obstacles that hide our true nature, the tale of polishing the mirror. After years of dedicated practice, a young monk approached his Zen master. Despite his sincere meditation and earnest study, enlightenment still felt out of reach. With obvious frustration, he asked, "Master, I've practiced diligently for 7 years. I've kept all the precepts, meditated devoutly every day, and studied the scriptures intently. Yet I feel no closer to enlightenment than when I began. What am I doing wrong?" The old master looked at him with compassion. Instead of answering directly, he led the young man to a storage room behind the monastery. There, hidden among piles of scrolls and ritual objects, sat an ancient mirror, once beautiful and reflective, now obscured by years of dust, grime, and oxidation. "Do you see this mirror?" the master asked. "Yes," the monk replied, confused by the seemingly irrelevant question. "Is the mirror defined by the dust covering it?" The monk frowned. "Of course not. The mirror's existence is separate from the dust. It merely covers what's already there. If someone wanted to see their reflection in this mirror, what would they need to do?" The master continued. "They'd need to clean it, remove the dust, polish the surface," the monk answered, beginning to sense the teaching. The master nodded, handing him a soft cloth. "Please clean this mirror." Day after day, the monk polished the ancient mirror. Decades of grime didn't lift easily. He tried different methods: water, oil, fine ash, special polish. With patient persistence, the mirror's surface gradually emerged. After weeks of focused work, it was fully restored, gleaming with a perfect reflection. When the master returned to inspect it, he asked, gesturing to the shining mirror, "Did your effort create the mirror's ability to reflect?" "No," the monk replied. "The mirror always had that capacity. My cleaning only removed what obscured its inherent quality." "So it is with your Buddha nature," the master explained gently. "Enlightenment isn't something you gain or create. Through practice, your true nature, clear, bright, perfectly reflecting reality, has existed from the start. Your practice doesn't add what's missing. It removes what hides what's always been." He continued, "The dust represents your attachments, aversions, and delusions, all the mental patterns that obscure your inner light. Meditation, precepts, and study are like the cloth you used. They don't bring enlightenment. They reveal who you've always been." With this understanding, the young monk's practice transformed. He no longer strived for an idealized state, but saw his work as recognizing and removing the dust of conditioned reactions, gently clearing it to let his inherent Buddha nature shine naturally. The Buddha said, "The mind is everything. What you think, you become." This reveals our thoughts and mental patterns can either obscure or reveal our nature, like dust on a mirror. Habitual ways of thinking and perceiving mask our innate clear awareness. Why does the dust keep accumulating? Zen identifies several causes. First is avidya, ignorance, not lack of intelligence, but fundamental misunderstanding of our nature. This confusion makes us identify with the dust rather than the mirror beneath it. Second is self-reinforcing patterns. Every thought of separation, every emotional reaction, every action based on a limited self adds another layer of grime. These patterns stack, creating a seemingly impenetrable barrier over our natural clarity. Third is cultural conditioning. We're often taught to achieve and acquire rather than recognize, clear, and allow, as if we must add something to ourselves to be complete. The Japanese concept of kai, touching the heart, perfectly captures this mirror polishing practice. It's not about adding, but removing obstacles to our inherent wholeness. In touching the heart directly, we contact what's always been there beneath the barriers, our Buddha nature, our original face before our parents were born. Zen practice is fundamentally a cleaning process. Meditation trains us to recognize thoughts, emotions, and sensations without being carried away by them. Ethics help us avoid creating more dust through harmful actions. Wisdom teachings guide, used back to our nature, encouraging us to look past appearances to the clear mirror that reflects all. The Buddha said, "We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world." This reminds us, dust isn't permanent. It can be cleared by attending to our present thoughts and actions in daily life. Notice when your mirror of awareness is clouded by stress, worry, judgment, or reactivity. Instead of fighting these states or being consumed by them, see them as temporary dust on your inherent clarity. The Buddha taught, nothing is permanent, all things change. Impermanence applies not just to external conditions, but to internal states, including the dust that seems to hide our clarity. Tonight, as you prepare to rest, imagine the thoughts, emotions, and experiences of the day being gently wiped away, revealing the clear, reflective surface of your inner awareness. As the Buddha said, look within you or the Buddha. The pure mirror of your true nature has always been there, waiting only for patient, loving work to clear what obscures it. Now, let's explore a story about simplicity and the path to direct understanding, the tale of pointing to the moon. One night, a Zen master and his disciple walked beneath a bright full moon. The sky was clear, and moonlight painted the garden path with silver light and deep shadows. As they walked in companionable silence, the master noticed his disciple looked troubled, brows furrowed, lost in thought. "What weighs on your mind?" the master asked. The disciple sighed. "I've been studying the sutras diligently, but the more I read, the more confused I become. One text seems to contradict another. Some emphasize strict practice, others sudden enlightenment. Some focus on compassion, others on wisdom. I can't weave all these teachings into a coherent understanding." The master listened, then suddenly stopped and pointed to the full moon hanging in the night sky. "Look there," he said simply. Disciple looked up at the moon, its perfect circle glowing against the darkness. "Tell me," the master asked, "are you looking at my finger or the moon?" "Of course the moon," the disciple replied, confused by the question. "Do you need to analyze my finger, study it, to see the moon?" "No," the disciple said. "Your finger just points the way." The master nodded. Scriptures, teachings, methods, these are all fingers pointing to the moon. They are not the moon itself. They guide us to direct experience of reality, but they are not that reality. If you fixate on the finger analyzing it, comparing it to other fingers, arguing over its merits, you might miss entirely what it points to. He walked a few steps, then continued. The teachings may seem contradictory because they address different people's needs, or describe different aspects of the same truth, like many fingers pointing at the same moon from different angles. But the moon itself is not divided or contradictory. When you look directly at it, there is only moonlight perfectly unified and complete. The disciple thought silently on this teaching. As they walked on, he found himself no longer fixated on intellectual understanding, but more aware of the moon's glow, the sound of crickets, and the feel of evening breeze. For the first time, he understood. The path to wisdom lies not in accumulating concepts, but in opening to direct experience. Concepts are just signposts pointing to the moon. Don't mistake the finger for the moon. This profound teaching warns against clinging to spiritual doctrines instead of letting them guide us to direct reality. Why do we so easily confuse finger and moon? Zen identifies several common causes. First is our ingrained habit of conceptual thinking. From an early age, we're trained to understand the world through concepts, categories, and abstractions. This conceptual overlay becomes so pervasive that we often mistake our mental maps for the territory they represent. Second is cultural conditioning toward knowledge acquisition over experiential wisdom, particularly in educational systems. We're rewarded for collecting and organizing information, not for direct insight or embodied understanding. This conditioning carries over into spiritual practice, where we may unconsciously treat enlightenment as another form of knowledge to obtain. Third is the comfort of the known versus the uncertainty of direct experience. Concepts, theories, and doctrines offer a sense of security and control. They can be mastered, organized, and owned by the mind. Direct experience, by contrast, often confronts us with vast unknowns, with the groundlessness of existence beyond our conceptual frameworks. The Japanese term shikan taza, just sitting, embodies Zen's direct approach. Rather than thinking about concepts of reality, we sit and let direct experience unfold unfiltered by our categorizing minds. This practice embodies the spirit of seeing the moon rather than analyzing the finger dot in Zen. Even teachings about not clinging to teachings can become fingers mistaken for moons. This is why Zen often uses paradoxical silence or unexpected actions to disrupt our conceptual thinking and point directly to experience beyond words. The master holding up a flower, the teacher shouting, the sudden crack of a stick on the floor, all designed to jolt us from conceptual understanding into direct perception. The Buddha said, "If you light a lamp for someone else, it will also brighten your path." This reminds us that the finger of doctrine is meant to illuminate our way, not become an object of fixation. When we use teachings appropriately, as guides rather than goals, they naturally lead us toward the clarity they aim to reveal. In your own spiritual or personal development journey, notice where you might be focusing more on fingers than moons. Perhaps you find yourself arguing over theoretical aspects of doctrine while neglecting its practical application, or collecting spiritual concepts and insights without letting them transform your direct life experience, or comparing different paths and methods instead of walking wholeheartedly the one before you. Tonight, as you rest in awareness, can you all concepts about restful sleep, even these stories you're hearing? Can you move beyond the finger of teaching to the moon of direct experience? As the Buddha taught, the entire path of mindfulness is this: whatever you do, be aware of it. This simple pointing is all we need if we look where it directs us, rather than clinging to the pointer itself. Let's turn to a story that holds ancient wisdom about meeting life's ups and downs, the parable of the farmer and his horse. In a village nestled between rolling hills lived an old farmer known for his unusual calm. No matter what happened, good or bad, he stayed equally composed, often responding to news with a simple, "We'll see." One day, a farmer's only horse, the one he used to plow fields and haul crops to market, broke through the fence and ran away. When neighbors heard the misfortune, they flocked to comfort him. "What terrible luck," they said. "You've lost your only horse. How will you manage the farm now? This is a tragedy." After listening to their worries, the old farmer simply replied, "We'll see." A week later, the horse returned to the farm followed by a herd of wild horses. The farmer, who'd once owned just one horse, now had over a dozen strong steeds. In his stable, neighbors rushed back, this time to congratulate him on his extraordinary good fortune. "What luck," they declared. "With all these horses, you'll be the richest farmer in the village." The farmer thanked their enthusiasm, but again said, "We'll see." The next day, the farmer's only son began training the wild horses. When he tried to tame a particularly spirited stallion, he was thrown to the ground and suffered a badly broken leg. Neighbors gathered once more, mourning the bad luck. "How unfortunate," they said. "Your son is injured and can't help. With farm work, with harvest coming, this will be a disaster." As before, the old farmer acknowledged their concern but replied, "We'll see." Less than a week later, military officials arrived in the village, conscripting all able-bodied young men for a war declared on a neighboring country. It was a dangerous conflict, and everyone knew many conscripted men would never return. With his broken leg, the farmer's son was not drafted and was allowed to stay home. Neighbors whose sons had been taken came to the farmer in tears, expressing their grief and admiration for his now seemingly incredible good fortune. The farmer listened compassionately to their mixed emotions, then simply said again, "We'll see." The Buddha taught, "Do not judge by appearances, discover the truth behind all forms." The farmer's story embodies this wisdom. His consistent "we'll see" reflects a deep understanding. No event can be fully judged in isolation. Its meaning and impact unfold within a complex web of cause and effect. Why do we rush to label experiences as lucky or unlucky? Zen points to our mind's habitual dualistic thinking. It tends to split all experiences into binary categories: good, bad, desirable, undesirable, beneficial, harmful. This automatic sorting gives a sense of direction and control, yet often blinds us to reality's complex, shifting nature. The Japanese concept fubuka refers to a mind that doesn't categorize experiences as liked or disliked, a mind open to whatever arises, unfiltered by immediate preference. The farmer embodies this by holding each development with spacious awareness rather than rigid judgment. Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh taught of interbeing, that all phenomena are deeply interconnected. Nothing exists in isolation. Everything relates to everything else in countless ways. The farmer's story illustrates this plainly. His misfortune of losing a horse led to the luck of gaining many. His son's unfortunate injury led to the good fortune of avoiding conscription. Each event flows into the next in an unbroken chain of cause and effect. The Buddha said, "If you can see the miracle of a single flower, you're whole. Life will change." This points to the depth and complexity within even the simplest phenomena. When we perceive without hasty judgment, we recognize that nothing is as straightforward as it first appears. Each experience holds multiple dimensions and potential developments we cannot foresee. Zen practice cultivates this pause in judgment by mindfully observing our automatic reactions. We train ourselves to notice when the mind quickly labels an experience as good or bad, creating space around these immediate responses. This fosters the farmer's ability to meet life with open willingness rather than closed certainty. Practically, this approach doesn't mean passivity. The farmer still took appropriate action at each stage, searching for his lost horse, tending to his injured son, adapting to the farm's changing circumstances. But he did so without the extra suffering of premature judgment and emotional reactivity. The Buddha taught, "When rain falls equally on the just and unjust, do not burden your heart with judgment, but meet all beings with equality." This extends the farmer's equanimity toward experiences to how we meet all living beings. When we pause our rush to judge, we create space for compassion to arise naturally. Tonight, as you reflect on recent events you've labeled as lucky or unlucky, can you join the farmer in holding them with "we'll see"? Can you recognize that their full meaning and impact may still be unfolding? As the Buddha said, nothing is permanent. All things change. Existence is always in flux. In this understanding lies the wisdom to meet life's unfolding with calm and grace.